This is a recording of a conversation I had with Thanos about his experience of the culture within vascular surgery during his career. And I'm very grateful to him for being so open and frank about not only what he's seen, but some of the things that he's done himself that he realizes are absolutely inappropriate and really need to change. I very much hope that conversations like this one will open up a wider dialogue about changes that are needed and encourage colleagues to see how they do have an important role to play in changing culture and that everybody can play a part in this. If after listening to this recording you'd like to talk to me, then please do get in touch. And if you would like to be recorded and share about your experiences, then please let me know. We began our conversation with Thanos explaining that he saw many, many colleagues who feel that they need to appear to know everything, and that that's actually an impediment to good practice and collaborative working. Then I pressed record. So that being the case, that people don't understand their own biases and that there's too much of people thinking they know the answer.
Yeah.
What do you think is would be helpful to change that?
I'm thinking, that's why I'm quiet. I
I
haven't
know.
said.
I mean, obviously, the first thing is what you just said, is you saying it to people, you making your colleagues aware of it. And I think one of the things I really notice is that people don't, on the whole, say these things. That there's a lot of people seeing the obvious and not saying it. And that could make a big difference. And I think there's this sort of, well, I can't say that because they'll feel threatened or they're influencing my career. Whereas, just these, even just these small observations of, can you really be sure of that? Or could we consider another point of view? It seems to me could make a difference. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Probably taking a step back and allowing people some breathing space and allowing people some headspace so that they can really understand what is going on there and they can look at what you described as something very obvious, which no one is actually verbalizing. Are we too busy to understand that this is happening? That might be one aspect. Have we trained the hell out of, have we essentially been through a training pathway that has made us not understand common sense the way that we should understand it? So what do I mean by that? Our training is very structured and very robotic in many ways. And it does make you think that you should always have the answer ready. So that might be another aspect to what we're discussing.
Then if you haven't got the answer, it feels like a failure rather than...
Precisely.
Whereas if you were heavily trained that you may have an answer, but part of the answer is getting other people's views on it, then that would happen more, I think. I'm not sure about we're too busy. I mean, obviously you are very busy, but I think when something looks really important, you find time for it. And I think perhaps it's more of what you've said there, that it seems like looking for other opinions is a weakness rather than a strength.
Yes, very good point.
I love what you said actually earlier about taking operating theatre behaviour outside the operating theatre, that there are behaviours that may be important. Just say again what you said there about there's some things that are important rarely.
Yeah, as vascular surgeons or vascular radiologists, we often deal with very urgent or emergent circumstances like life-threatening bleeding. And that's why I'm saying that there are parts in your training where you do develop this attitude of making a decision on the spot and going ahead with that decision. Yeah, that's important when someone's about to die. However, if you keep behaving like that outside that context, that's going to lead to conflict, and that's going to lead to decisions that are just not right. So that behavior can simply not be taken out of the emergency or the vascular operating theatre. When we're making decisions about people's chronic illnesses or their quality of life, we need to understand that these are complex decisions. We need to hear the other views and the other opinions before we make up our minds in an informed manner. And that's where we should be setting our biases aside.
Yeah, that's such an important distinction, isn't it? And it seems to me that it's not just about those clinical conversations, but it's also just about dealing with people. It's like, dealing
Absolutely.
with somebody's mistake or something that they haven't said that they should have said. Doesn't need the emergency response barked command or criticism. It needs that other way of being.
Absolutely. We are dealing with people. We're functioning in a people's system. We're not an airline where most tasks are taken care of by software. And that's why I hate this analogy of us being a bit like a pilot. We're not a pilot. When you've got 4 operating theatres down on a certain day, 5 of the nurses on the ward are off sick. The registrars are crying because they're having issues at home. And you have to deliver healthcare, which is delivered by people, not by software. This is not an airline. I'm sorry. And like you said, we need to understand that we're dealing with people here. And even if you look at the hierarchy that we've got, which is completely outdated, all you need to do is just join a ward round with certain vascular surgeons. It's a bit like being in the army in the 1950s or the 1930s. The way that we demand people to do certain things, or the way that we verbalize our commands, it's impressive, really. I
Not in a
don't
good
think
way.
I don't think any, not in a good way, yeah. I don't think any other industry would tolerate some of these behaviors.
Yeah, that's exactly my observation. That no, it just most industries just would be horrified. And yes, and yet it's kind of going on a regular basis. And it seems that often when people do raise concerns about it, they're not heard, or there are enough instances of bad experiences for people who call out that behavior that people just stop doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. You are met with sarcasm. Um, and again, I'm holding myself responsible, right? I'm not saying that not, that I don't behave or I haven't behaved in certain ways. For sure, and I've said horrible things. I've said things to trainees that, yeah, are just not just horrible, they're beyond horrible. But I think gradually we need to start understanding that this is just not the way to do things. And especially the softer things like the sarcasm, the daily sarcasm. This is very commonly used in the
Really?
surgical environment.
Wow,
Yeah,
wow, that sounds
yeah.
like the playground from 20 years ago.
Precisely. That's the perfect way to put it. It is the playground from 20 years ago. And this is still going on. Yeah, across all surgical environments.
Yes. Thank you for being so open. When you say that you've said things that you feel are beyond horrible to trainees, would you
Yeah.
ever go back and kind of clean that up? Would you go back and apologize? Or is that something that kind of never happens as well? Because that to me is the next step, is the sort of awareness of it and and then calling out yourself on it. Because, habits die hard and, maybe things pop out that you don't mean. But if you can soften it even later, perhaps that's helpful.
Yeah, agreed. I think the older I get, the easier it is for someone like me to say, I'm sorry and reconsider my behavior in the future. And I have definitely tried to make myself more aware of my limitations and my behavioral issues by taking a step back and reevaluating situations before I act or before I speak. But indeed, I think probably this should start becoming part of the training. How do you say sorry? How do you respond to difficult colleagues or difficult situations? Situational awareness should be more integrated in the training.
Definitely. And I think that is happening. And I know the Vascular Society's just done some training for early years consultants, which I know contains some of those things.
Yeah,
But part of it is, you said, oh, knowing how to say sorry. I think everybody really knows how to say sorry or some idea. It's the knowing that you can say sorry and it doesn't make you look weak. For me, that's the thing that makes the difference.
yeah, very good point. I mean, everyone can spell the word sorry or say it.
Mm.
Um,
And
I
but
can
why do people
guarantee
not say sorry? Because it's like,
because
well, if I say sorry to you, trainee, then I've lost all my authority. Well, that's not
absolutely,
true. Actually, you really build your authority by being willing. I've actually did a lovely recording with a woman who's a intensive care specialist, and she was actually talking about not sorry, but I don't know, and how I don't, which she said, when I say I don't know to trainees, they practically fall over. But the increase in trust in the relationship is just enormous, because then they'll say when they don't know, and it's like you were saying earlier about getting other opinions, and that not having all the answers is actually just how it is. And having to pretend that you have all the answers all the time well, that's a sure recipe for burnout, for one thing. And and it creates bad relationships, because trainees can probably see that you don't know the answer when you come up with something that maybe isn't the answer.
yeah,
So it's that honesty, isn't it? And openness, I think.
agreed. And you, my colleagues, that's the other good thing about being in a playground, like you described our work environment. I keep saying that our work environment is a bit like a playground, but when you've got 6 or 7 year old boys, they argue a lot, but they seriously love each other.
Hmm.
And my NHS colleagues have been amazing. It's the only way to put it is I'm just amazed by how they've supported me through all this. So there's not only the negative side to how we behave, there's the positive side, that
Yes.
camaraderie and the feeling that, yeah, we're one team and we're here
Well,
for you.
wouldn't it be great to be able to harness that
Yeah.
into a broader context? We're here for you because you're not well, but what if they could be here for everybody just because you're our colleagues, and
Yeah,
equal or less senior, but including that support. Um,
absolutely. Good
so
point.
if you could see this project change something in vascular surgery, what in 2 years' time, say, what would you hope might be different?
Behavioral change. And behavioral change starts, I'm being told by all the behavioral experts that I work with on my projects, with awareness. And the awareness that uncertainty is sometimes okay is probably the first step. And then we take it from there.